Alright guys, yeah, recording this on the back of an Uber. There we go. Had to make my way out of North London quite quickly, but we've just gone past the Emirates Stadium where Arsenal fans are leaving after seeing Arsenal end the season on, look, it's a high. The football wasn't great. The first half we could easily have been a couple of goals behind actually. But it's a win against Newcastle, against a team that are third, against a team that if we'd lost against, we'd have dropped down to third and found ourselves in quite an uncomfortable situation. 3 things I want to talk about today. Arteta's comments after the game, which I thought were really interesting. The actual game itself, and the links to Bryan Mbeumo. I was with AFTV, so I wasn't able to get anything out on the Goonerverse too. But Teamnewsandtix has said that Arsenal are actually in talks for Bryan Mbeumo. So let's explore all that in the next 10 minutes or so. Look, on the game, I said on my AFTV fan cam, we can all be annoyed at the season, we can all be angry about our problems, but I don't think we should expect in game week 37 that the problems we've had are solved when they weren't in games 1 to 36. So did I expect anything massively different from Arsenal? No, but I also didn't expect us to look so shaky. I think I'll give credit to Arsenal in a weird way, because while we could have been 2-3-0 down, that's why you got a top goalkeeper, and Raya showed what we had to do, and Newcastle are a very good side. Okay, they didn't have Alexander Isak, and maybe with him that would have been slightly different. But we didn't have Bukayo Saka did when we played in the Carabao Cup, and sometimes it can be those slight, that can be the difference. But anyway, I say I give us credit because Saliba went off and Kivior had to go to right centre-back. Calafiori played centre-back, left centre-back coming on. And actually Arsenal got control of the game. What I thought was a really pretty boring game, to be honest, which I sort of struggled to stop yawning through the watch-along about. Like, as I was watching the game, I was really kind of struggling to maintain that kind of energy for the game, which I know is not great, and I apologise for that. But I think despite that, I think Arsenal kind of almost had to inject a bit of ball into it, a little bit of, that's almost flattened the game a bit, because it was a bit too open, a bit too expressive for my liking, and Newcastle were the ones benefiting from that. The big spaces, running at goal, and the one-on-one battles they were having. As Arsenal then got control and they had to camp themselves back into their half on the edge of their area, penalty area, Newcastle, Arsenal then started to move the ball around quite well. Lewis Skelly thought looked bright. Calafiori had an impact. Kivior defended really well. But then you had Ødegaard start to do a little bit more of his thing. Bukayo Saka wins the ball back, shows some good feet, and Ødegaard from that cuts it back to Rice, who strikes the ball brilliantly. And Declan Rice's ball striking and finishing and his numbers and his output generally have been really good since he arrived at Arsenal. And it does make you think that's the all-action midfielder we need, and that's fine, but then we're going to need a little bit more guard and creativity either out wide. Martinelli can head down and run. He's actually not a bad finisher either. Is he a creator? I think he's got a good cross into the box. I wouldn't say he's a natural creator. I think Bukayo Saka has certainly added that this season, and certainly has the most of it. Is Havertz a creator? I wouldn't say so. Jesus at his best was, we haven't seen it for 2-3 years. Trossard, I thought with his tech would be more of a creator, but we haven't seen that. So we just need more creativity in whatever area of the pitch that sort of comes in. And when Declan Rice is doing what he's doing now, you kind of go, okay, keep him, box to box. Zubimendi and Partey looks like are going to be the 2-6s next season. So we just sort of plough ahead with that, really. And maybe Marino establishing this kind of goal scoring, momentum he's had in 2025. You kind of think, well, can you sort of reinvent that position a bit in the way we used it when Granit Xhaka was here in his last season, where he was getting on the end of so many moves. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, let's see. That was the game. Arteta then spoke after, and he said a few really interesting things. Now, I've not been one to really entertain the excuses for Arsenal in the season we've had, but I do think he said some things that were right, and one of them was other teams with less injuries, maybe 1 or 2 injuries, have fallen miles off their kind of standard. Now let's use Man City as an example. They've had, not just 1 injury, but Rodri's kind of the big one. And also, may I also say that we haven't had, as many injuries. We've had a lot of injuries, but it hasn't been like a crisis like a lot of people will make out, I think. We've had a lot of injuries, but I think people have acted like it's been, an unconceivable amount of injuries, and I don't think it's been that either. But anyway, all this to say that Yeah, Man City, the reason we're not really going to sort of have a go at City about it is because they've won the last 4 Premier League titles, pre-Liverpool winning it this year. But at the same time, they lost one player in Rodri, having started the season really brilliantly, and they fell off a long way. So ultimately, they got to an FA Cup final, but they didn't win. So for me, we got to Champions League semi-final. Ultimately they didn't win. And like I said, it's kind of forgiven because of the level City have shown for years and years. I think it wasn't just a Rodri injury. I think there was maybe mental fatigue. But the point is, you can lose 1 or 2 big players and things collapse massively. I think Arteta's point is, ultimately, they kept going. They kept fighting. I said on AFTV, if a bad season for us is second in 2 semi-finals, then I'm quite happy with that. Now, I'm not remotely happy that we've got, that we didn't get past PSG or Newcastle in the semis, and that we didn't give a fight for Newcastle. I'm not happy with how the season went. But the fact that second in 2 semis is a bad season shows that the floor's been raised, that the expectation has been changed. And Arteta spoke about that too, and I do like that. He actually said, some teams have injuries in their 16th and 17th. You know exactly who they're talking about. Unacceptable levels for Man United and Tottenham. But the reality is, they could come out of it with a trophy. For one of them, that will paper over the cracks, and that will be a great moment and a great day. But for another, it will just cement what has been a diabolical campaign. And I sometimes think, we've been judged in the media almost as much as these guys. But maybe that sort of that date penciled in of the Europa League final is kind of what's it's kind of what's keeping people from really kind of going in on United at Spurs until they find out which one of them is going to pick that trophy up. I don't know. Guys, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent here. What I'm trying to say is, it's been a terrible campaign, and I've been very critical, but I also don't think it's been as horrendous as a lot of people have made out. I'm not sure the media coverage has always been completely fair, but also think anyone who's defending it and going, well, it's just injuries and, nothing we could do in bad decisions, isn't looking at what we've done wrong. We need to take all of it. All of it is a part of the conversation. But there's only certain things we can control, so do better. And that is what Mikel Arteta then said in the last bit. He said, we go to the beach now, and hopefully the people upstairs do what they have to do. And he's sending a message there. And Josh Kroenke said we're going to invest, and Declan Rice has said, we're going to bring some players in. It's the message and sounds from the club are quite directly we are going to work hard. Now, Teamnewsandtix work hard to bring players in. Now, Teamnewsandtix has come out and said that Arsenal are in talks with Bryan Mbeumo. Really good debate between Robbie and Turkish on the Starting 11 show we did, because see, with this is I actually think the two of them made really good points. Robbie's point was, just because he's not playing for Real Madrid or another massive club, why we're kind of turning our nose up at a really good player in Bryan Mbeumo. And then a lot of Turkish's point was, he's brilliant, Bryan Mbeumo, but we need a left winger, a right-footed left winger who is a fit for what we need to do and instantly takes us up a level. And I found that really interesting, because I was thinking, I agree with both. I think Mbeumo can make an explosive jump and be, someone who makes a massive difference for us. But at the same time, do I look at him and go, yeah, that's the fit? And Turkish's point, which I do hear, he was saying, well, this summer has to be hits. People have to come in. We need to know what we need to do and do it. Not just kind of, well, we'll get this guy, but we'll put him in here, but there's this market opportunity and all that. And Mbeumo's got a year left on his contract, so he should be available for a more favourable 30 to 40 million. I think someone is picking up a really, really top player. 19 goals this season. I think 8 assists. Really impressive numbers. Maybe 19 and 9 assists, I can't remember. Really, really impressive numbers. And I think Arsenal need to look at... I think we need to look at players like that. The question is, can he, as a left footer, play out on the left wing? I wonder whether he could be our starting striker. Could he be a false nine of this team? Because I think our system ultimately does suit players dropping into midfield and, kind of roaming a little bit. I don't know if we play to like an out-and-out 9 who's just there to bag goals, but then actually with Mikel Merino, you saw a little bit of how that could work. If someone told me we're signing Bryan Mbeumo for 40 million, I'd be a very happy man, because I think he's a very good player. Is it a perfect fit? I don't know. But sometimes you just want quality players at your club. So maybe I'm sort of lowering my expectations there just to appease myself on a particular signing. But I don't know. Something tells me that Bryan Mbeumo and Arsenal would be a good fit. Whether it's on the left, whether it's up front, whether it's playing with Saka's position, which I know people don't like. I don't really know. But listen, we want fluidity in our team, and maybe we can be inventive and do something else. So yeah, I like the Bryan Mbeumo links. Those are my thoughts on the game, on Arteta's quotes, and on the Mbeumo stuff. Yeah, look, we I don't know. It's been a bad season, but I don't think it's been, you know, it's not been diabolical. It's not been something that makes me really question everything about the players and the manager and what the club's trying to do. But it's been bad enough to make us go back to the drawing board a little bit and go, right, we need to really take stock here and start being ruthless, because we are far too many years into this process for us to kind of keep pointing to the excuses and, you know, we could have done this or we should have done that. It's a big summer for Arsenal. Anyway, there we go. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment section below. Catch you in a bit.